Lexan Light is made of two separate PCBs which look like that. So you have one half of PCB and the other half of PCB, and once you assemble it, it's going to come out 4 wires in the back. So the very first thing we need to do is find out which 2 wires are going to which half of the PCB. So here, this is what we are going to do. We are going to connect the driver and feed power to one half. In this case, we are going to connect the PCB here, power supply, to one of the PCBs and identify. So we have connected the wire red to red and one of the blacks to black to find out if those 2 wires are going to turn the PCB on. So go ahead, turn the switch on. No, this light did not come on, so it has to be the other black wire. So we are going to change it. All right, so this one half of the PCB just came on and the other 2 wires are still out. So we identified that these 2 wires are going to one half of the PCB. So once this wire is identified, then you need to zip tie it, tie wrap this one side so you know which wire is going where. Next step, we have to remove all of these screws, 8 of them. So once the screws are removed, this is ready for bridge installation. So before we install the bridge, what we are going to do is install this nipple and have the wires come out from this nipple. So once the nipple is installed, you want to make sure the short side is at the bottom. Feed the wires through it. Make sure this bottom is always silicone filled to keep it water safe. Once this is installed, just want to make sure it is locked down really tight. Okay, once it's locked down tight all the way to the bottom, now they will come typically with these nuts and seal type bolts. We're going to remove those. So we're going to remove those. And now we are ready for bridge installation. So now we're going to install the bridge. Make sure all the holes match and install the hex head screws for the bridge. After these are all installed, make sure you lock them down tight. And then you're going to put the base plate on this and match the holes so they go right through all 5 of the screws. Now we are going to install this base to the bridge. Once this is installed, it's going to have complete installation just like that. Once you do the installation, make sure the plastic washer is on top and the metal washer is at the bottom with the nut at the bottom. We're gonna put this nut on top and start to lock this down just to make sure from the bottom, the bottom nut is right to the bottom of the base. Otherwise, once you start to tighten this down, it's going to bend the base plate. So you need to bring it right to the base plate. We have already identified the PCB. So these 2 go to one half of the PCB and these 2 go to the other half of the PCB. If you are using 2 drivers with 480 volt, then you're going to connect one driver to one half of the PCB and the other driver to the other half of the PCB. So one driver is feeding half of the light and the other driver is feeding the other half of the light. So we already separated these. This is going to this driver, that's going to it, and this one is going to be at 480 volts. And these drivers are mounted inside the driver housing and secure them with screws. You have multiple choices of screws shown at the bottom. So you can use 2 screws for one driver and 2 screws for the other driver. If you're using lower voltage, say 120 volt to 277 volts, then you're going to need only one driver. So for one driver is going to power the entire light. So now at this time we are going to take the both reds and both blacks, because we are going to feed from one driver. So we are going to put both reds that's coming out from the fixture in here, and then both blacks go with the black on the other side. So because one power supply for low voltage means 120 to 277 can power the entire light. For higher voltage, you're going to need 2 drivers, as we explained before. Make sure that you have weatherproof gasket at the bottom of the cover before mounting to the base plate. So we are going to put screws right through it. It makes it easier for us to keep this in place. Now the driver is mounted inside, and all we need to do is reconnect these wires back to the printed circuit board, and your hot wires goes to the AC voltage. Because these wires are for 120 volt to 277, make sure you never ever hook these wires directly to the line voltage. If you do, it's going to immediately burn up the light. Now we are going to install the seal tight and have the wires right through it. So what we're going to do is put the line to the line voltage, black to black. On certain drivers, the input colors are different because the international colors are brown, green, and blue. Your brown is hot, that's your line, and then blue is white in the US, brown is black in the US, and this yellow green is obviously ground wire. And then we're going to install the top. Make sure you don't have the gaskets coming out from anywhere, and lock it down using Allen wrench. Lightly lock it down on each side and then tighten them later once everything is securely in place. And the last item is with the mounting hook. Sometime you may need it, sometime you don't, but a lot of companies use this for safety. And here is the final assembly. Everything is complete, your whip coming out, and the light is ready.